Hey, I'm Anne, the Welsh chef, and it is so wonderful to once again have this opportunity to speak about money and wealth and strip away so much of the BS and the bling and the hype and the shame or the rah rah around it to really get real about what is real wealth? What does it take us amazing, let's call us extraordinary, ordinary people who choose to actually get empowered around this and what it means. So, in tonight's session, well, tonight, my time, definitely daytime for Laura, and Michelle, early evening, because once again, we're on three continents and I'm joined by the amazing Laura and Michelle. So, thank you for coming and being prepared to have a clean conversation about money. It truly is such a privilege in so many ways. So, just so people can get to know you, but let's start it off. And Laura, why don't we start with you? Just who you are, what keeps you in mischief, preferably because that's the point of life, and yeah, where are you joining us from? A little bit about you.
Yeah, so I'm joining you from North Carolina in the United States. And what keeps me in mischief, I guess, would be beach walks and being on the ocean. And before we started our wealth journey, that was actually a change we had made to move here. And we spend 3 months a year up in northern Michigan, which is also amazing. So very, very grateful for that. And yeah, I live here in North Carolina with my husband and our two daughters who are 8 and 11.
Wow.
And I have an online training business that I've had for 14 years. So
That is so brilliant. And what is the training around?
yeah, I train business analysts, which is a profession in a corporate environment. We're
Yeah.
usually working on like a business process change or a software change of some sort, making sure that all of that change actually delivers what the business needs and wants.
God,
Yeah.
it's just, it's so glorious what the different elements and how vast life is and the opportunities and what we can do. So 14 years you've been running this business.
Hmm.
Just absolutely brilliant. And Michelle Thomas in Portugal.
Yes, I'm in Portugal. We moved here 6 years ago, and it was just after we moved here that I was able to go to the London FFU Live. And yeah, I've been building my business since then. I've got a retreat center here, and it is thriving, it's successful, and it's exciting.
Well, I can't wait to find out more about where both of you are at because one of the things, and I know when we sort of connect in this way and we become this sort of FFU family, yes, we've got very focused things to do. We've got to build your money, but there's also this aspect, it's our whole lives. And Michelle, I remember when you first sort of went there, it was all new, starting and creating this retreat center. What a beautiful place you have. So I love to say we all love life outdoors. We love the wilderness. We love nature. I think that's such a lovely thread here. So what a beautiful day. We're talking beaches, mountains, Michigan, Portugal, and this, and your horses and all of your creatures that you have there too. Oh, so it's such a joy. So Laura, um, if you can go back and think about before you started your journey with me, with Financial Freedom University,
Yeah.
how would you describe your financial reality, the emotional side? Where were you at? And was there a point in that where you just said, hang on, something needs to change? I'm always intrigued. And I think for a lot of people listening and watching, what was that decision point where you said, no, I need some guidance, I need support, I need to learn something different?
Yeah. Yeah, so I have like always been a saver, like since I was 12 years old. I remember I put like cents on my paycheck into a savings account. Like I've been like a compulsive saver. And even like in my 20s, started investing just in terms of maxing out my 401k matching and all of that. Right before I had joined FFU, I kind of mentioned this. We had moved to North Carolina. We had bought this very significant oceanfront house, and then we rent it out part of the year, and which basically covers the expenses for it. So we were like in this, I felt
Okay.
like we were in this financial position that no one in my family had ever been in, that I had never even like dreamed of. And I really didn't know what to do. Like my saving mentality didn't seem like it was like what I needed.
Yeah.
Like I was just like, my tendency was like, oh, let's just like figure out how fast we can pay down this mortgage and like then we'll be okay again. And so like I had started to talk with my husband about hiring a financial advisor, and I felt very unsettled about that. Like I didn't feel like I was going to get what I really wanted from that. And that's really when your course came across, and I realized like this would teach me what we needed to learn. And so like maybe eventually we will still want a financial advisor, but I knew that I would at least go in knowing so much more about what I wanted and where we were going. And that's really what has unfolded.
I love those distinctions. I mean, there's two key things about aspect where we suddenly realize that our skill set is no longer matching where we're at or the life that we're wanting, and going, hey, I need to learn new things. And there's no shame in that. There's no just like, I love to say, okay, my saver, I know how to keep some of this, but where we can actually end up contracting or shrinking away because we can almost bring our reality back down to our competency. And you went, hang on, no, I'm going to expand my capacity to reach that side. And I think many of us find, one, we don't grow up in families that talk about investing and assets and managing larger sums of money, different conversations. It is earn and save, maybe, or earn, don't be in debt, save, maybe. But this whole area, I mean, that is just so key. And then this whole point about, I really want to just honor you for that, trusting that part, saying, well, no, I'm not prepared to just outsource this. I think we are fed a story as well around our financial well-being that this is scary, it's dangerous. We need somebody who's supposedly got some magical knowledge. And it's so easy to disassociate or just go somebody else instead of going, hang on, yeah, I might use someone, but it's going to be from an empowered way where I can ask the questions, know what's going on. That's so cool and sexy.
Yeah,
I love
thank
it.
you.
Great to see your place. It sounds amazing. And what age were your kids at that point? So that was.
So I joined in 2019.
Okay.
Yeah, so they're 8 and 11 now. That was 3.5 years ago. So they were like
Yeah,
probably
so-
5 and 8. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a big stage in terms of you running a business, you've got young kids, all of these elements. And I think often they come through. And I think as a woman as well, we can go, hang on, you know, I don't know whether it was an element for you, but now going, hey, you want your kids to have a different skill set than maybe you had, to their choices to be shifted and different.
Yeah.
So
for sure.
Michelle, tell us where you were at when you started this journey. What was going on in your world and what made you go, hang on, I want a different path?
Well, my journey really started when we were still in South Africa. And we were deeply in debt. We had 2 bonds, and it was a huge mission every month to get through the month. One of the biggest turning points for me that I can remember is, so I think I was receiving your newsletters for many years before I came to any of your courses. So one of the things that I really became aware of is what was an asset and what was a liability. But I didn't really look initially at any bigger picture. I reduced it to the tiny, tiny things. So I just sat one month. It was the middle of the month and I had no money for groceries. And I was sitting in this house full of furniture and things and books and all the stuff that we have around us. And I started looking at each book, at each lamp, at each plant, at each picture, and wondering if it's an asset or a liability. So I reduced it to the tiniest fragment of what I had. And I worked out that if it's an asset, if this book is an asset, it's because I value the book to hold on to it for a long time because it'll keep giving to me. And if it's a liability, it's because I've already read it and used it, and now it's occupying energy on my shelf.
Oh, I love that.
And so that realization was really key for me because I literally gathered stuff in my house that was no longer serving me and went and sold it. And that was one of my biggest shifts because of just understanding if you own it, it either works for you or it drains you. And that was really big for me. So that, of course, and then the other thing that really changed was I received money for a job that I did as an interior designer, and I didn't spend it instantly on the family, and that I didn't have bad spending habits, but it all went into school fees and
And
I didn't,
we're not justified if it's not for ourselves, if it's for the family,
yes.
the kids.
I didn't have consumer debt. It wasn't like that. I'd managed to blitz that age as before, but there was still no money. Every month we were still short of money. And this one month I just said, that's it. I'm just taking, so, I said, I'm going to look at what I earn as a bonus extra and not feel guilty, take a portion of that and save it. And it just has to sit there. And when I started doing that, something strange happened, because there are rules about interest and the way your money can accumulate and things, but something extra happened. It's like it became an attractor. It's like magic started to mushroom around me. And as I allowed a saving in that big way, financial way, other opportunities started coming in. People would bring us baskets of food, or I'd have another opportunity for another job. Or so those were the very key things which made me hunger for more.
You've
And
described,
that,
yeah, such exquisite things there, and both. And this, what I love about
yeah,
when we really come into this granulary aspect of our relationship with money. You described as being surrounded by a lot of stuff, but not being able to pay for groceries. And
yeah,
this break-even cycle that so many people get caught into, that it's almost as though we're taught we're not allowed to keep any of the money we make. We have to convert it into something. And then you look back into that, said, and you use the word, I'm not sure whether you could have, but maybe you do. You said you decided, I'm not going to feel guilty about keeping some of the money I made.
yeah, exactly.
So maybe some of you watching is like, wow, I joke sometimes saying you're allowed to keep some of the money you make, but actually sitting with that, we can feel guilty sometimes, like we should pass it on, it should be this, and just unconscious, and to have that awareness. And then, as you said, this magic that then conspires. It can start sounding like we were maybe, but it truly is. I truly believe when we demonstrate that we actually have the capacity to hold on to some of this. There's a leadership thing that happens. There's a starting to stand for life, for ourselves, understanding custodianship, and go, hang on, I can actually keep some of this, but also do something with it and grow. Coming back to Laura, then the next thing is, great, I've managed to keep some of my life, but now how do I actually expand that and grow it? Michelle, thank you for that beautiful, beautiful just description of both where you are. It really is so stunning. And so you both said, hey, something needs to change. I'm going to shift this. What was empowering? So Laura, you started this journey. What did you focus on initially? What were the changes, the areas that really made the first impact for you? And what were the results?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the most important things I did is my husband and I went through the course together, and we would literally we'd watch it in 20, 30-minute spurts after the kids went to bed, and then we'd watch our funny shows to unwind. But
Exactly.
we had this shared goal of getting to North Carolina, but then I felt like we had very different tolerances for debt and risk, and we had different versions of what was next. And not that we were unaligned, but we just didn't have the same language. And it just gave us a great language to talk about what our expenses were, what our assets were, what our just to actually get to have the same language and to define things in the same way. Because a lot of things that I felt were an expense, he felt were an investment. And so I would feel like, oh, it's scary to spend all that money. And he would be like, it's just an investment, it's fine. And so it really gave us some language where we found a way to meet in the middle. And then the first thing I did was really that calculation of our net worth and determining, I had numbers that I calculated on a regular basis, but I was just looking back to the numbers I did like in 2017. I joined the course in 2019. Like I didn't have that net worth number. Like I had an assets number, a liabilities number, but the assets kind of only included our equity. So it didn't have that final number that has been very, like, it's just like, it's very empowering now to watch that grow.
You start getting to see the whole and how
Yeah.
that works together.
And then the piece kind of along with that was then seeing, really calculating what our financial freedom number was and feeling really clear about that. And then like at this point, knowing it's 3 to 5 years away and just feeling like it's an inevitable thing. Like that's before, like, I think part of also the reason I joined is I just didn't know where to go or what was enough. Like I just didn't have that sense of what the end game was. And now we just feel really clear about that. And that's really comforting.
No, absolutely. And this is one of the paradoxes that, yes, in a way, financial freedom is a destination, there's a number, there's that enough point. But the paradox is when we know what that is and we know what our plan is and we can see the steps to get there, we immediately get the freedom, because now it's not just hovering in limbo. Maybe we will, maybe we won't, a bit of floundering around in the dark, and maybe we'll stumble out there and there'll be daylight one day. And you describe it so beautifully. But I really want and pick up this point. We speak about having a common language, because when we come into relationships, there's a lot of areas we might talk about, but we also come with our own model of the world. And one of the things is as you spoke so beautifully, our tolerance for what do we need in order to feel safe? What is our relation with how we make our rules around spending, consciously, unconsciously? And there's so much conflict in so many relationships around money. And a lot of it's not necessarily because there's a scarcity of each side. It's often just because there's deep misunderstandings. Like one person, well, why did you do that? And the other person, well, what's wrong with that? At FFU Live event, Michelle might remember, I do this fun little game and get people to turn to somebody else and just write down what's a big amount of money and what's a small amount of money. And no one's allowed to sort of show it to each other, and then you share it. You're in couples. And then people laugh and go, but you're a freak. No, you're a freak, because we can use these vague languaging, I want more money, or it's a big amount of money. But if we haven't in relationship said, hey, well, okay, spending above this amount makes me feel uncomfortable. So can we just always agree to check in with each other on that? And if we just say, hey, if you've got to go and spend a lot of money, talk to me before, a person might think a lot of money is, $3 million, and yours might be $10. And so I love you're saying how you use this mechanism to just start having these clean money conversations and having that vision. And so I guess that was also key in going, what is your cash safety net? What do you need? I mean, how does it feel to be seen by your partner? And I use that word, knows what your financial or your wealth blueprint is and what's important to you.
Yeah, I feel like it creates so much more trust. And that when we are talking about goals or what we want to do next, like we have this foundation too. So there's a connection that comes from it, and a sense of a shared responsibility and a shared vision. Yeah. I will say one other piece that I didn't message, another example was the reservoir piece. Yeah. So we had money because we are both have our own businesses, and then we had this real estate money. I mean, we just kind of, money was flowing in all these ways, and which is great, right? But we did, and I found myself like I had all these like little special savings accounts where I would squirrel money away, and so there was no real picture. And so starting to channel everything through the reservoir too, just gave us that again, especially with a lot of variable income and a lot of income in a few months of the year, it's a very clear picture where it used to make me feel really uncomfortable that there were months of the year where we were really not meeting expenses and we felt like we were behind, but really it's just that we have these very abundant times of the year. And so just to kind of neutralize a lot of the emotions around that was a big one.
I love that, because we also don't, unconsciously or just through society, we often get into patterns where we tend to think of money flows in a paycheck to paycheck cycle, or a fortnight or a month. But often our money doesn't flow in that way. So we end up, our management and our flows are in disconnect. And so that anxiety comes around, not because there isn't the money, it's just because we've never aligned how we view it. I love it. I know, I love a reservoir account. Isn't it so great? So Michelle, you started on this journey, and around about similar time, you made this huge, big life change. So tell us, when you made the decision, you joined Financial Freedom University. Walk us through a bit of what happened in your world.
Well, we went from extreme debt into a place of extreme abundance. And that extreme abundance came from investing into stocks and shares. And that was our first investment, and property. So we gained from selling properties, even though initially they were bonded. When we sold, we made money and released all that debt, but then never took on more bond debt, thankfully. And the big thing
for mortgage in the rest of the world.
Mortgage, yeah, no mortgage debt. So that was a big liberator for us, and also making decisions to just not buy anything on credit. So, if you can't afford the car that you want on credit, then you can't afford the car. That's it.
Yeah.
So that was also a really nice shift, is to be happy with the things that you can, because a car is just a liability. So to be happy with your liability, that's very functional, but you don't owe any money on it, because it just, So that was huge, that mind shift. And then my husband, Richard, came along with me on this journey as well, just like Laura. And I'm really, he's risk averse, and I'm really keen to, dip my toe in and So I must say, I'm the one who has pushed us into greater and greater things, and he has been the fantastic anchor to stop me going crazy. It's really a wonderful balance. And so we managed to buy our farm outright, which was amazing. But I'll tell you, the thing that I really wanted to communicate is that when I look back, I don't have a specific memory of the exact order of things, but it seems to be that I kind of just, by listening to the same things over and over again, this is really important, is to not listen once, but you hear the same things over and over again. So the first time you hear about ETFs, it's a foreign language. And the next time you hear, it's still foreign, but you recognize the symbols, And so eventually we'd invested in a lot of ETFs, and I bought more properties, and we had the individual shares as well. And this is what got the business through COVID. For 2 years, we funded the company, the business, we functioned because of our financial stability. So that nest egg, that principle of having this giant nest egg, this insane, that's the financial freedom. We were building up for the financial freedom. So for 2 years with no income, I still paid salaries, we still kept going, and we survived. And now we're thriving. And that was simply because I had shares to sell. I had ETFs that just did extremely well. And I had done this discipline, this financial discipline, to keep going, to keep going, to keep going. And, now, because the company survived, the point of the company was to have passive income. So the company is the passive income for later when I retire, but it's also my current fun, because I'm loving it, but I'm setting it up to be self-sufficient. So now we're going back into the investing and the ETFs, and we're setting ourselves up again. We haven't lost the properties. We're getting rental income from the properties, which is fantastic. had no debt, zero debt, and just consistently chipping away, getting back to that financial beefiness that we had prior to COVID. And now I am excited about investing because I've seen what it can do for us. So now I'm diversifying into buying art, into buying books, first edition books.
Your collectible category in.
Exactly. So still with the pyramid, this is a little proportion of what it is that, yeah, exactly. But it's the top end of the pyramid that's the exciting part, and giving yourself that bit of excitement and then all of that stability and building up the layers. So
Wow,
and I must say that it wasn't it wasn't that I learned about ETFs and it wasn't a course. It was a consistent listening and listening and listening and hearing and hearing and hearing, so that it stopped being so.
Action. You took action because some people
yes. Well, that made it less scary, So it's like learning a foreign language and then feeling confident enough to speak the language eventually, because you gather enough of the bits and pieces of the language so that then you can start to speak the language. And so now that foundation has been the greatest gift. I cannot tell you, because let me explain what that's done. I mean, it sounds like it's amazing because it helped us to keep our company alive, but we employ 8.
Pause there and just really recognize you went through these huge shifts. You created that from, break even, not being able to pay for groceries in a month, to then building up this foundation. Yes, we aim for freedom, but there's also this aspect of really understanding we're also creating safety, we're creating choice, we're creating resilience.
Exactly.
Who knew a pandemic was coming along? You've got a retreat center. You're at where people come on holiday, cut off, stopped overnight. And you were able to use that base. If that
and the staff, man,
pay groceries, you're able to keep people on, keep jobs going. I mean, that is extraordinary, Michelle. Well done. And you created that.
Thank you. But the biggest, I mean, yes, the company, this is really awesome to know this. Yes, we kept the company going, but you know what? If I had to have closed the company, I would have still been okay, because we're so financially resilient. But the company, I kept going, and the staff, they were saved through the pandemic.
Yeah.
So
it wouldn't have been probably.
So the financial resilience gained from learning all of this meant that, we impacted on over 100 people around us in the communities that they carried on surviving and living, and just as it was before. This is so remarkable. The gift is astonishing.
Oh, I love this. And when we say, for Laura, as you are sharing as well, when we also know the skills that you now know, you can't lose those. These now become part of you. So you're now sitting going, yeah, you have used some of those resources, but it's like, now we know. We'll just rebuild, restart. And I love you saying you give yourself permission for some of that, the creative, fun stuff, but you know the importance of having the boring is beautiful. And this is that consistency, that regular. It's never one investment. It's not one ETF. So it's also breaking out of that. You described so briefly. There's not this one thing that suddenly eureka, hallelujah, we're saved. It's these habits that build up. That is just so beautiful. So Laura, you're saying you are 3 to 5 years away from your freedom. So what has been your primary area of focus in terms of building that net worth and investing?
Yeah. So we had stocks and like stock funds and ETFs and index funds before, and like had just continued to continue to add in and increase. And like I've always had that like automatic investment strategy and like always inching it up as we can. But a big piece of that has been our real estate. So I mentioned the first house we bought, and actually in 2020, we were able to buy a second house here in North Carolina, which was just, there was like a few things about that. It was amazing, but there was a few things we didn't love. And it was I actually used all your tools to like map out what will our balance sheet look like 12 months from now if we buy the house versus if we don't. How does it affect our financial freedom? And it actually, it feels so counterintuitive that even though we took out a big mortgage on it, it actually accelerates our progress, because now we have invested in 2 houses that have increased in value, and now we're able to rent out our other house. And so just having, like, again, me having kind of a lot of fear around it, like having the tools to actually run the numbers and be like, actually, this works, like it works out. And it allowed me to pursue something that brought us a ton of happiness as a family, but that also has added to our net worth and accelerated our financial freedom.
I love that, a win-win. And you've also having tools to actually go, let the numbers tell me, and knowing how to read that. And you talk about, you using this powerful aspect of expansion debt, not that contractional neutral debt, to go, oh, as you say, it seems counterintuitive, but now when you can see the numbers and work it, and as you said, that peace of mind that comes from the balance sheet, we share often in FFU, like feeling a bit anxious, go to the balance sheet, and we all can calm down again. It's so key. It is. Yes. So Laura, for you, with your 2 kids, what do you think is going to be different for them as a result of modeling the 2 of you and seeing what they've created? What kind of conversations are you having with them around money?
Yeah, it's that is something that I am definitely growing into, and have been really trying to think about how we want to educate them around it, because I am so aware that, like, I still have these patterns, right? And I want to educate them that they do get to have what they want, and also that they have to work for it, and that there is this savings mentality. So I am still looking for the right language for that, quite honestly. But one of the things I really have started to think about a bit is a generational wealth aspect of, like, what would it look like to expand our wealth in such a way that we could set them up with some sort of a nest egg, or some sort of I think of it as like a freedom fund, with a complementary, like, willingness and how would they be more free to contribute to the world if their top goal out of college or high school or wherever doesn't have to be like, how do I work to pay my bills every month, right? Like, what would that enable them to contribute? So those are the things that I started to think about and talk about as we're in that flux. I don't feel like I have any great answers.
And you know what is so beautiful? I was just sharing out today that I am still in this beautiful inquiry, because it keeps expanding the possibility, not the amount that we need to consume. My lifestyle price doesn't actually expand, but the possibility of what does freedom mean? The quality of those questions, the next level of exploration. And I love what you've described. Now you're starting to sit in this, well, what could this look like? And what might that be and having the freedom to even contemplate these next ripple effect kind of questions. I think we should have a conversation in Wealth Builds around exactly this. I've been researching intergenerational wealth. Where does it succeed rather than disable next generation around how to have those conversations that empowers in family offices, in trusts, and those elements that really expands rather than contracts. And where you can't even start contemplating those questions or considering them, and also, what does conscious spending look like? Where do we want to make impact and use that ripple effect when you're worrying about how you pay groceries? And this is where it's so vital. Often in the personal development world, there's a lot around just focus on the big thing, and it's all about the financial freedom, and when you can just, sit on the beach sipping daiquiris. But the first fundamental layer that I truly believe is giving ourselves first that safety and that resilience, so we're not in that anxiety and stress and burning that up. And then the next thing is this power, not force, but this power that comes from having resources. But we also have to have that internal capacity to understand that we have been given a responsibility and a privilege of what do we do with that? There really is a power where we expand that. And I think a lot of people, maybe, when money just comes to them quickly, they haven't built up that internal capacity to actually be a great custodian with money. And I think true wealth comes from having this, when it's confidence, it's skill sets, and it's this deep knowing about our own enough. And for both of you, I can really feel this lovely centeredness in both of you, like going, wow, I get to now explore life myself from this place of I'm enough. And now it's more the wonder of what can be created with this rather than money starting to define either of you. It's just, that just sort of came. And I hope I'm not projecting anything on, but I'm just seeing in both of you that, and I think this freedom is just extraordinary. So, for Michelle, for you now, what is this enabling you? Where do you see your next steps as this is growing your amazing retreat? I can't wait to get to Portugal. It's on the coast north of Lisbon in Portugal. I've seen pictures. It looks amazing. So go visit Michelle. Use that retreat center. It is extraordinary.
Well, I love what Laura was saying. She's actually spoken about something that I've just gone through, because the neighbors selling their property. So I had this thing that I was thinking, oh, this is so exciting. I can expand the retreat center. This is fantastic. And I can expand the accommodation. I can use it in this way and that way and that way. And then I went to the balance sheet and I looked at what this would entail. And I looked at the numbers just didn't make sense. So I had the opposite thing. I think that they are pricing it too high. I can't get the right turnaround on the investment. I would have previously just leapt in, because on the surface it just looks fantastic because I can expand the retreat center. But in Portugal, the bank loans or the mortgages are just so tricky, and it's so tricky to make money in a sensible way. I mean, the return on investment is just not high enough. So I have realized that all I need to do is have neighbors who will create the accommodation, and I'll rent the space from them. And this is what I've already started manifesting. So my neighbors around me are going to benefit from the property, and I don't have to spend the 400,000 euros to get the property next door. I just have to rent it as I need it. And I'd much rather take any money I've got and maybe buy a coastal property, if it's property, that is, if this is it, if that's the next investment thing, a coastal property that I can use as a weekend place, but is rented on an ongoing basis to earn money. I mean, that makes the most sense.
I love it. So as you say, both sides, we can use one. So essentially we use these frameworks of freedom to guide us to, not just guess and flounder around. But you've also, touched on a key thing, which certainly is so important for me, and we've also shared many of FFU as saying, suddenly we can also come far more of a creative element to say, hang on, how can I have this? Not, well, I can't have it because I can't afford. What's going to be a more generative way? What's going to be better for my balance sheet? And not, you didn't just go, oh, well, I have to shrink down. It's like going, hang on, I can, these other people can be my assets. And when we realize we don't have to pay for everything, we don't have to own anything. It's about understanding the flows of money and understanding how we leverage those returns on investment is just so, so, so beautiful. I just love it. Both of you just glowing and shining where you're at. So Laura, if somebody is sitting there, maybe with feeling anxious or stressed, or maybe a saver, but scared to invest, not knowing what to do, or just, thinking they've got to outsource it, not knowing how much is enough, maybe with their own business, what would be your message to them around, Financial Freedom University, but also just a key point of advice? What do you think has been pivotal for you and the thing for you to remember on this journey that's got you to 3 years from your financial freedom?
Yeah, I definitely feel like the course will walk you through the tactical how-tos in a way that also shifts your mindset. So I do feel like I haven't found anything else out there. I've done a lot of money courses that are more on the manifesting side and the mindset side, and I feel like that's a very necessary component as well. But there's nothing that I've seen that has this sort of tactical, here's how you go through the whole big picture, and here are how all the pieces and parts fit together. And I think you would address people at so many different ranges of where their financial situation are as well. Like, you just are able to really meet people where they're at. In terms of my one takeaway, I think it was the calculate, like, know what that number is for your financial freedom. And that requires a bunch of the tools. Like, you need to know what your net worth is, and you need to know what your cash flow is, and all those pieces. But once you have that, it just gives you that anchor of something to go for. And to me, that allowed me to feel much more safe and relaxed, to know that we're continually on track to that. And so it allows us to play a little bit more and to do things that on the outside might look very risky or speculative almost, but actually it just makes so much sense. So it really calls your rational brain.
It's not just a flash in the pan. It's not a guess. It's not just winging it.
Mm-hmm. And like Michelle, I've also used those tools to make decisions not to make investments. So I've done that side as well. I had a few passion projects that I was like really excited about, but I just realized it just wasn't, like, there will be a time in my life, but it wasn't now. It was like, it was putting us too far kind of outside of the zone of what felt like moving forward for right now. Yeah,
I love that. Yeah, it is, and it really is getting in alignment with, the empowered feminine, the empowered masculine as this whole of where we, instead of, this, we can't have, we've got to play small, bring your dreams down, and one way of that suppression, or the other way can be, to hell with it, I need to live large, but and then actually putting ourselves at risk, bringing these two sides in service. So bringing the frameworks in service of creation. Mm-hmm. And really, as you described, really that beautiful saying, the river needs riverbanks in order to be a river, in order to flow and get to that ocean. Otherwise, it's a big, gigantic puddle, and if those riverbanks are too tight, there's no river either. So it's that beautiful relationship. And I just feel it for you, your family, with your husband, and all you're creating. It's just so key. And as you say, that inner game is so vital. But also, if we only work on the inner game and manifesting, but don't have the practical how-tos, that's also can be very devastating. That is the river that just becomes the puddle because there's no framework for it. Oh, I love it. So beautiful. So for you, Michelle, somebody sitting in maybe a big life change or thinking like you've done, huge shifts, changed continents, all sorts of things. What would be your advice to somebody wondering whether they can do this too?
All right. So I've got two things, and that is, when you feel like you need some kind of change, there is some kind of dissatisfaction with your life, just remember that your current life is where you are in this very moment is as a result of your previous decisions and actions. So the only way you're going to change what happens next year or in 5 years' time or next month, or how even changing how you feel, is by changing your actions and your behaviors. And so the first thing is repetition, which sounds really boring. So it is really boring. Consistency, repetition, consistency. You're learning a new language, you're learning a new skill set, you're learning a new habit, you're learning you're building muscle groups. So you can't get fit in the gym if you don't go to the gym every day or every week or consistent. Just keep on going. Even if it's once a week, that's fine.
You can't just and hope you're never going to have to do that again.
Yes, you keep going. And the next thing is to relax your mind and be open to opportunities. Not every opportunity is going to be great for you, but you won't know unless you start just being obedient to what is possible. So this is possible, and you take a step forward. Oh, that didn't work. You take a step back. The next thing, I'm open and obedient to possibilities. That is the gift of the universe, is offering you chances to improve, to move, to grow. And if you don't act obediently to the opportunities, you don't have the chance to grow. That's my takeaway. That's what I got.
I love that, because often people say they want to change something or want to do it, but are not prepared to take that step, are not prepared to respond when here's the opportunity. Are you going to, are you going to let go of that crutch of that familiar suffering and dare to walk through that door of freedom? And it can feel damn scary to
But scary means if you're scared and you still take the action, that's when you're brave.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
the more you are brave and the more actions you take, the less scary it becomes, and the easier it is for you to just keep being consistent, do these things, taking opportunities. And that's the gift of freedom. It's actually not financial freedom as much as freedom from being beholden to other things. It's just having this freedom. You can be yourself. You can have everything taken away, and you have the freedom to just carry on, build it all up again. It's a big game, and it can work.
Beautiful. Yeah. And both of you reflecting that freedom, where I really get the sense that for you, both of you sitting in that beautiful truth of enough, knowing that you now get to express and explore life as an expression of your enoughness, not to try and be worthy. And it's just so beautiful to see. Just thank you so much for sharing your stories. So inspirational. I could talk all night, but I'm just seeing that time, and I'm just seeing some questions. We've got some lovely messages. Love this, putting yourself first. A necessary expansion debt, Laura, one that will have returns. That's wise. I made the mistake of thinking I couldn't afford the course, but I'm convinced I must save for it to attend as soon as I can. And I think also understanding, when we're not trying to look for something to rescue us, but instead we know we're going to, do the work and get knowledge to expand us. Another one, wow, Michelle, buying that farm from not having food. This is so inspiring. Thank you so much for sharing this, because, when we can have these clean money conversations, when we can talk without hype and BS, this, I think, is how we get to help and transform the world. And we get into right relationships, so our precious nature that we all love also just doesn't keep getting consumed up out of the starvation of so many people, not from lack of resources, but from a lack of nourishment from what we have. Oh, thank you, both of you. Such a pleasure. Bye.
Thank you, Anne.
Thank you.
It was really wonderful to be here.